Hey Lola, what's up, girl?
Ooh, you are fancy. Where's your
I'll
water?
get my water. Because you're doing lemonade. Also, I had that matcha this morning, which is great.
You should make me a cocktail.
Listen, girl, I've been back one day, one thing at a time. Is this chair really small? The fuck?
Well, it's more because...
I need to layer me on some books.
But I am taller than you anyway. It's funny.
Oh, I thought you meant in life. You can have this moment.
Yeah, like, you know. Welcome back.
Thank you very
I'm
much.
so glad that you're back.
I love that you guys are matching in grays. You're
We
different
are.
grays and blacks.
We match. We're the same.
You guys are.
They say that. That dogs are like their owners.
This dog is exactly like this owner, for the record.
Yeah. We know what we want. We can do a little cuddle. We want to chill, you know. But the world needs love sometimes too. But when you were in Europe, like, how did it feel? Did you feel like I know I feel like this. I do feel something brewing in terms of a sense of urgency. Like especially around, you know, like Black Lives Matter and when we were doing our marching and all of that stuff. But like, how, obviously I haven't traveled in the pandemic times. Like, how did it feel? Does it feel different? Do you know what I mean? Do you feel the energy of it? That,
No.
like, I put in slides every day. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, but do you feel it?
I think that's such a great question because in a way what I was just saying was kind of taken for granted, that it feels like life is just going on, and life does go on. And I think as humans, our survival instinct has us with life goes on.
Yeah.
You know, and to adapt, we get by. We don't live in a permanent state of conscious fear on the surface. We have to go to our jobs. It makes me think of, you know, wartime in any country where the war in Beirut, the war, even when we talk about things were going on in 2020, like you were saying, movements, Black Lives Matter, during war times, things don't completely stop. People still go to work. They still have jobs. They still have to eat. So even in the most catastrophic times, we still find a way to adapt and get on with our everyday life. And I think what's super interesting is that we get on with our everyday life carrying this sense of urgency in the background, but it's not as visible on the surface. And I think part of that is because each human, it's an individual responsibility that we carry. And I think this is also why we put so much pressure on the governments, which is to have one body saying, hey guys, every day when you wake up, this is what needs to be done, and we're all going to be in it together. When you put your rubbish here, this is what's going to happen to it.
You know what?
When you,
It's so funny because you talked about the government and where we put our trust or want to. You know, and I was looking at obviously some data, and it was like no one trusts any of them at all, and it's been eroding for the past like 10 or 15 years, like significantly at a pace. And I was just like baffled. And when I was doing work for like a finance client, and they were like, okay, how do we build trust? Someone will give us their money, and it was that you actually can't. Like, you actually have to show that you're compatible with something that they do trust.
yes.
And so if you actually show that you fully embrace and are compatible with that, then you're borrowing the trust in a sense. And so in this case, it was, because it was like, we don't trust the government anymore, but it was like, we trust the technology companies, which me being, you know me, I was surprised. It was like, why would you trust Google with your money? But they've been more transparent than the government. They've been more transparent than even if they get caught out doing something. So it's interesting we talk about, we put our trust in someone, in something, because that's supposed to help. It's supposed to do something for us.
You know, you make me think of when we talk about that, why people will do endorsements, right? The shortcut to that is let's get someone who's well known, because if they're well known, the public, whether it's a footballer, it doesn't fucking matter. Footballer, singer, trust is established because familiarity is established. And what do we trust? Familiarity.
Yeah.
And so I think you can borrow trust there. And as we can see, people will spend a lot of money to be like, please endorse my product. But with that said, this actually takes me, if we're talking about trust in government, I think about vaxxers. I think about anti-vaxxers. So I'm vaccinated, right? Everybody has their opinion on how COVID started, didn't start. Everybody has their opinion on what's in a vaccine, what's not in a vaccine. And everyone also has their opinion on how to save fellow man. Like, how do I protect you? How do I not protect you? Do I care? But what's interesting is that the people have been pitted. The people are now pitted against each other. And what I find super fascinating is we have vax and non-vax. But in all of this, if I look at anti-vaxxers and I look at the heat that they're getting, I'm thinking, do you blame them?
Yeah.
Do you blame someone who doesn't believe Big Pharma, who doesn't believe their government, who doesn't trust these two entities?
Yeah.
You can't blame them.
Yeah, that's true.
Even the people with vaccinations, they might say, I trust the science, but you could still say to them, do you trust your government?
Yeah.
And do you trust Big Pharma? Now, modern medicine, how far we've come with modern medicine, even if I would like to try preventative stuff, even if I would like to try alternative medicine or lifestyle to hopefully prevent illness or things that I might then need pharmaceuticals for, there is still a point in which this is so tremendously useful and has allowed us to progress so far as humans.
Yeah.
But again, taking it down to trust, which actually takes me full circle, I don't think we know as humans where to put our collective trust to then put collective movements together. We've had to band together, which is why I was saying it feels like the age of responsibility, because each human has a responsibility, but we are kind of in a vacuum. What's cool about decentralized ledger tech, and I would say there is a positive and a negative. There's the light side and the dark side, like everything. We have the ability now to have cryptographic proof for what happens. So when you look at the banking institutions, for example, if we use cryptographic proof for currencies, we can now see every type of exchange. It's harder for a centralized entity to fuck you over. You can see if they're mismanaging money. You can see where things are going. And then, of course, the standard things with crypto. You can send money here and there globally. Of course, there'll be regulations. I'm sure we'll see a bunch more restrictions.
Yeah.
But it gives people the ability, if it was like, oh, I would love to set up a banking institution, but how the fuck do I do that?
Yeah.
And who's going to do the books? And how are you going to trust it? And how do I find the right people? It's eliminated a lot of kind of legwork to be able to create certain things as a group of people. And I realize, sorry, I just went on 8 tangents about all sorts of other things.
I know you.
But shut up. But the point is that now, why are we excited about this? Well, because I think that having cryptographic proof, having NFTs, allows us to manage the digital world, I think, in a way that we manage the physical world or the human expectations. So NFTs, for example, as soon as photos, music, movies became digital, they lost their value. You can share them, you can pirate them, cool. That's the entire creative community having to rethink how they make money.
Yeah.
So NFTs, for example, and certificates of authenticity on decentralized ledger tech means that now we can actually give value to digital assets for the first time. So we're opening up the realm for creativity to be rewarded again, artists to flourish a bit more, to have more autonomy. Cool, that's a creative space. Then we look at real estate. You used to have to be able to buy a building as a human. I need the money to buy a whole building, and then I can sell these apartments. Now, for example, in a way that we weren't able to organize as seamlessly before, you can have a decentralized autonomous organization, so a group of people pool their cash together, buy a building together, and all be shareholders, for example, of this building. It's one example of many, but you can basically now have communities do things together. Communities make decisions and rely on cryptographic proof and smart contracts to help enact these decisions and have trust or trustless.
Yeah, I think it's giving way to like new business models and new opportunities in a way that before there would have been some barrier to access it.
Yeah.
You know, so again, similar to how the internet, and again, like you said, there's the light and the dark of all these things, especially of really transformational technology. And so, okay, the internet allowed then for people to learn things, right? YouTube became people's university. But then, so it stopped the barriers to access for a lot of things. And anyone could then kind of get eyeballs on something, right? Get exposure if they knew how to kind of work the system. And I feel like now we're at another moment where people are looking and searching for, because the things and the entities we trusted, we recognize you can't be fully trusted. You weren't all about what we thought we were about, you know? And if I do care about my fellow man, if I do care about animals, if I do care about the planet that we walk on, I don't necessarily now assume that you also do. Corporation, government, rich person. You know, I don't assume that because that's how you got successful. Now we are being shown, especially with the transparency, that again, the internet lets the information travel much faster, that they didn't care at all, actually. But in the end, they were at the top. And so to me, I feel like now there's the tools that before I needed access to be able to have a way for us to trade and exchange. If I wanted to do business in Africa or I wanted to do business, I had to figure out like, how am I gonna put the infrastructure in Africa for me to do that? Well, now I'm like, oh, maybe the blockchain can help me do that. And we can actually have some type of an exchange that's decentralized where we set rules of engagement of how we want to, and maybe then we can showcase a new business model, a new way to do something that's meaningful to us both, right? And so to me, I'm like so excited about that because I think us as individuals, we have more power than we realize, right? We have more power. And just like you said with the trash, we could all just dump out our trash. Hey, we could also just start to operate differently. You know, we can start to use things differently. That's how things come and fall, right? Like it wasn't that we stopped listening to music or stopped wanting to watch movies, it's that someone gave us a different way to watch them, a different way to listen. That option was still there for a long time, right? There's a long time typically with meaningful innovation that changes our lives where both options still existed before one of them becomes obsolete. Yeah. But we chose the new one.
Well, we chose convenience,
Exactly.
and I think
usually that drives it.
And so, what's interesting is that, you know, what you were just saying, like we, as humans, we could just do this or we could just do that. We could actually just do things that are good for our health. We could not have, you know what I mean? We could not have, but we don't do it. Nope. And then that comes down to, you know, our reptilian brain, our fight or flight, our, you know, the fact that our brain doesn't know the difference between what's right and wrong. It goes for habit, right? We do these things, we can sometimes be short-sighted and long-sighted at the same time, but not actually be able to evaluate them at the same time. So right now, governments, right? We want to have power to have our own communities and be able to act out our own societies, for example, or organizations in our own communities, do what wasn't possible before. But what we're also doing is using the closest thing to permanence to basically record everything that we're doing, all of our actions, even if you think of CCTV on the blockchain. So here we are on one hand saying we don't want AI and we don't want to be tracked on our phones, yet at the same time, we're hyper enthusiastic about something that is a permanent database for AI to just insert itself into and absorb information. And then we have the debate as humans. Well, this is the world that we're living in, so am I going to get left behind? Am I not? Yeah. The upside for me, and the reason I even do crypto education is because, or blockchain education, is because if this is the technology we're moving towards, and knowing the community that I have, the fans or the friends that I have within my community, because a lot of what I do is focused on wellness and trying to help. Yeah. Being able to say, here is new tech. If we have the intention to do anything, if it's cool shit and good shit, know that the tech is here. It doesn't have to be, I want to make loads of money. Elrond being the first zero carbon negative blockchain, for example. Yeah. How many banks are out there being like, yeah, we're planting trees every time you make a transaction at the ATM? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So these kind of opportunities, these kind of things, these kind of responsibilities, these communities can take on, like blockchains or DAGs or whatever it is that we're talking about on DLT. So with that said, we had these forces. We talk, obviously there's the boomer generation, right? Everyone's dividing it by generation. Every generation thinks the generation after them sucks, and every generation thinks the generation before them was stiff. It's evolution, right? But as you were saying, the internet is so fast, the transactions were so quick. 50 years ago, success was simply defined in a lot of ways from what we've seen as money. Yeah. As the 2.5 kids, the 1-car drive, the house, or the American dream, let's say. The truth is that the dreams have changed. The evolution has changed. Purpose, positivity, being happy, being able to follow your purpose. So now that we're kind of evolving more and more into that space. We want wellness. We're learning about wellness. We're also coming at a critical time when actually all of these things that we may want, we're confronted with, but the systems are still going for the model of money is success. All of our infrastructures that are built are based on money is success.
Yeah.
Big pharma, government, etc. Power, money is success. And now, you know my dream of the fundamental is education, of giving as much to education as we possibly can, so that kids can grow up with as much of a holistic existence of humanity. Obviously, this is a dream, and you go, who am I, just one person saying this?
Yeah.
But again, that's
but
it.
I think we have to do all of it. It's like,
Yes.
It's also like bottoms up and top down. I think, I think we need a new measurement of success.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
like everyone can talk it, but like I actually think giving someone a new measure that tells them they're successful, that isn't just one note and only about money, I think can have a lot of impact. Well, I hope that it can. But I think like
NFTs, man, buy a Bored Ape, your success.
It's gotta be all of it. No,
I'm joking.
please no,
I'm
please.
joking.
Like, but it's gotta be all of it. I think.
Yeah.
It's gotta be. I gotta like figure out how I'm gonna touch the masses, but then also there is some. Oh, we fundamentally changed that structure, and how we think about success as a company, as a corporation, as
Absolutely.
and how we value that, and how we move from this world where it was just quantity over quality. Was what it is. Like if I look at the way investment happens, the way that it's like how much of a thing can you sell? Not how good did it do, not how well was it for the community, not like how did that supply chain get set up. That's all an afterthought. I mean, we want it to fix itself. And then my most frustrating thing is that we give companies time. Companies that have billions and billions and billions of dollars of profit every year, we're okay with saying like, oh yeah, take your time. 2030, you'll stop killing the environment.
Yeah, what the...
It makes me so angry. I'm like, well, no, one shot. Like, do it now. Like, and then we'll start on the route, and we will reward you. Actually, your source of your money is probably a consumer at some point, and we'll reward you if you actually commit to it. Like, don't feed me this baloney. I'm saying like, but it's gonna take us 10 years.
Well, here's the thing,
to
because
transition it all. What? Come on, you have more money than anyone else. And to your point around what technology has done, it has surpassed us. Right? So it's going too fast, moving too fast, and the dark isn't even being thought about until we experience it, which is too late. So once we experience the dark side of that, then we're like, oh gosh, we need to do something. And we usually go black and white. We go shut it down, like lots of states and countries and governments are doing around crypto and blockchain. But instead, I think that you need real ethics and like real morality applied to some of these things. I don't have the answer as to what those things are, but there needs to be something. So when the fact that when the AI that trained Google's algorithm, which is powering, I would argue, at least half of any language-based or image-based AI that we're using on this planet is powered by Google's initial training, because then they made it open source. But they trained it on what imagery did they have, and who do you think had access to the internet so that they could have all the imagery? So it's disproportionately white, it's disproportionately wealthy, it's just like, that's what it looks like. So then when it gets an outlier, a brown person doing whatever, it's like alert, 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 right? It goes into a zone where it's gonna predict that that's something out of the norm, and then out of the norm is bad in most situations. So I just think there has to be something. Again, and I do think, that's why I like the idea of decentralized communities, and how do you actually, it's democratic, but in a different way. It's democratic in a way where I feel like I have power to influence, as opposed to just, again, a binary decision. And so if we could actually rise up, in a way where we're building things thoughtfully, with sense making built in, with things that genuinely, there's texture to it. There is a context, there's nuance in the way that someone makes that decision, as opposed to blanket, let it go, it's free press, free technology, free whatever. No, there should be some context, because we don't want to do any harm. And Google saying we don't want to do any harm and then doing harm makes me crazy.
But here's the other thing about it, and I agree, and I think that this is where man comes along, because I think in the end of the day, it's so easy to have the intentions as we do. It's so easy to have the intentions of, like I can say, oh, the structures were all designed for, success means profit, success means money. But at the same time, how many of us who didn't do those structures, how many of us get excited at the prospect of being able to make a bunch of money? So we also can't say, for example, and point the finger and say, well, those structures, therefore it's all evil, because we are a part of it, and we're living as part, and we are actually,
we enable it too.
we enable it. And this is again coming back to the point of responsibility. We enable all these things with our everyday decisions. So all of the things I've said, I also say them with the understanding and the caveat that as much as those structures are in place and we can point at who did them, who didn't, it doesn't matter. We are within them and we are operating within them. And unless I'm out there every day strapping myself to, let's say, a building and saying, fucking do this and do that, like, no, we're all complicit.
Yeah.
So I think the most important part for us to acknowledge is, number one, we're all complicit. And number two, to be real with ourselves and realize we have the intention, but how many of us are out there fighting every single day or creating the organizations for change? Now we want to, and we're actually working very hard, even together on projects where we want to make a change. But again, we're so behind on time when it comes to the climate, and we wake up every day feeling like, I could do more, what can I do? And so I think that the one thing I feel is a bit missing, and actually something I think blockchain could help with, is it's less about fuck these people who set up the world and it's going to burn. They did what they thought was right with the petri dish that they were in, the time, the etc. they were in, and humanity is evolving. Now we have the information, but life is so hard that we're seeing we also don't have the will or even the understanding to go, let me step out of my norm. Let me stop doing my job all week and just go plant a bunch of trees. Let me stop my job for a year and go plant trees. It takes a lot of courage. And so I think what I love about blockchain, what I love about decentralized organizations is being able to say, okay, how can we now mobilize and organize as people? We've been asking governments or things or whatever, and we're stuck in these models. These things, yes, they take time to change, but because human, bureaucracy, all this shit which we can point the finger, but it's also humanity, and I hate to say it, but there's spanner in the works at everything. So now, every turn. So now, if we can have, for example, blockchains or whatever it is, organizations, even for regenerative farming, even to be able to get together, I feel like disproportionately it's in our hands. And as individuals, and I can't stress enough.
We've ever had.
We've had more power than we've always had the power. We've just chosen to give it up. And I think at this point we've learned that giving up won't do. And so the thing I can't stress enough is simply that yes, we have the desire. A lot of people have the desire, but we also acknowledge that we are not doing enough. And even the ones of us who want to do something, I think, are struggling to find the means in the organizations. And so I think consciously building these avenues, or to take it back to the beginning of the chat, instead of vaxxers and anti-vaxxers screaming at each other, how about everybody turns their attention to Big Pharma and the governments and says, motherfuckers, why can we not trust you? Why are we fighting it out with each other? How is there no trust in any of these systems anymore? That's where we can put our attention, or we can put our attention into organizations to help build. And that's such an easy thing to say, obviously, because people are dying and people are very sick. We're just having a conversation where we can, in the comfort of this living room, afford to be somewhat utopian. Yeah. But I think that's where thoughts start. Thoughts start in what's the best case scenario and how can we potentially work backwards. But yeah, I think that's where we're at. But I do feel like, unless we feel, like you're saying, the immediate consequence of some of these things, we are still all human and we're still trying to stay alive, and we're still, a lot of us in our societies, picking immediate gratification over long-term gain. We are guilty of it. I don't want to pretend I'm not. I won't, do you know what I mean? Of course. It takes strength.
Yeah, it's how I got these shoes.
From what?
I just wanted them. Come here, Lola. So tell me, I mean, we've been talking a lot, and you know, I'm really interested in.
I'm so relaxed right now.
I know, it's great. When we talk about humanity, you know, and me getting to watch you over the last year and a half, you know, 2 years of like how you connect with people one-on-one, and what role your music plays, you know. You talked about it a little bit around like when you were a little girl, really, like music can save people's lives. You know what I mean? Like, this is the ticket to make you feel better, to make you feel differently. And so, like, how do you think about your music? Like, how do you balance, you know, again, because we're working on so much stuff, how do you balance your music and what you want to do with, like, all of this other stuff that you want to be a part of?
Oh, no fucking idea. It's a mess. That's a good question. I think that, you know, obviously I've always liked doing so many different things. Fundamentally, helping in any way possible, as generic as that sounds. And I think that everything goes hand in hand. At a certain point in life, I realized that musicians, this point has gone in 5 places and I haven't gotten to it yet, but musicians, for example, we like making music, and obviously we feel music, we're excited to make it. The way my brain works is just, you know, music orientated. And we have friends who will like taste a piece of salmon and just jizz all over the table and be like, oh my, and you're like, okay, your brain was wired to being a chef, that's great, you know? And we have people, visual, Sunny, who's like, my floor has to be white and clean and visually obsessed. So for me, it was always music, and I had a passion as well for physics and nuclear physics and space and the universe and where did we come from and all these things. So I was studying that, but I kept being pulled into music because, well, I have synesthesia and a few forms, so I'm always triggered in different ways, and it's very physical. So if I go shopping in a mall, for example, and there's a shit song playing, I'll feel seasick, and I'm like, I struggle with music in malls. So there's little things like that, right? But at the same time, the music didn't always feel like enough. And I think I didn't understand how to value it in a way. I think I may have had traditional thinking that, like everybody does when you're a kid, you know, there's like the real jobs, and then being a musician is just a cool thing you get to do, right? And so I always wanted to keep an active mind, and I was very curious in physics and nuclear physics and particle physics, and so, as you know, studying that. But I think then as life progressed, I was making music, but I still had that energy. You know, when I left school, I still had the energy of wanting to put my mind to something. So anyway, in balancing all of those things, you realize that, or at least for me, it was however my brain works, whatever comes easily and naturally, is the one thing that may bring me the most purpose, the most sense of peace, and it's probably the thing I'm going to be the most prolific at. Okay.
That's my question. My question is, you as a musician, you channel art, which to me is very emotional. Yet the way that you talk about it sometimes is the brain part of it, where your brain fires, which is obviously real and true.
Musicians are fucking crazy though, like, because they're just fucking crazy.
That's how?
Yeah, you go into the job and you just go, I'm going to be a fucking nut job for the rest of my life. This is just how it's going to be. You know, you will be too much. You will be too emotional. You will be too sensitive. You will overthink
so
things.
Your brain tells you that's okay. Yeah.
No, I mean, I think as a serious answer to that question, I would say that a lot of the time, or let me just speak for myself. I'm hypersensitive, but I view sensitivity as a beautiful thing. I don't see it as a weakness by any means. I see it as perception.
Yeah.
If we are sensitive to a lot of things, we are actually more perceptive to a lot of things. So there are a lot of people who are tremendously sensitive. And I'm not talking about you're a musician, so you're sensitive. I'm just saying I happen to be a sensitive person, and there's a lot of people who are very sensitive. Now, that can be overwhelming to the point where it can be crippling. Or if you find a way to channel it, which and some of the things I do in some workshops with people is, you know, really find where your brain goes to. We have, of the 5 senses, where does your brain tend to sit? Is it more in taste? Is it more in smell? Is it more in audio? Where, and actually we find that people tend to lean more towards one or the other. And if you take that concept and you go, now channel that. If it's movies, if you love visuals, go to art shows, watch movies, do things that stimulate you visually, because that brings you peace, because it ignites your soul, for example, for lack of a better word. And so when we talk about sensitivity, it is, to me, it's perception. So if you are busy perceiving so many things, feeling, internalizing a lot of things, if you don't have something to channel that, then it can be quite overwhelming. And a lot of artists are frustrated, and a lot of artists might not be channeling things the way they want, or they're trying to channel, but they've decided that they want to do it and be commercially successful. So now instead of purely channeling, you're channeling with an agenda that might not be your agenda. So then you're frustrated because you're trying to channel with your head, not your heart. So when I say the brain, I mean your entity. I mean, it might be the operating system, but it's also in tandem with your soul, with everything that you feel, with every vibration in you. So in terms of managing it, I would just say that I try and channel it. So I try and make sure I feel more at peace when I play guitar, sing. And there's been some fun studies that, singing will reduce stress, where everyone's sing in the shower, like just go, just sing. So with that said, there's channeling, and then there's also trying to balance it. So now, for example, tech, consulting in tech, building things, that is kind of a hobby for me, which is interesting. Or even if it's 50-50 at a given point in life, maybe, it's, to me, flipping between different headspaces can be exhausting if you have to do it all day, like 1 hour writing, 1 hour business meeting, 1 hour writing. But if you're able to manage your time and manage your energy, I think that's how I find my balance. It's very, very deliberate, and it's taken me a long time to go, this is how my day needs to be structured. And this is how much downtime I need to have. This is how much, I don't want to stay up all night and create. I'd rather wake up at 6 a.m. and create. That's something that took me a while to flip. So that, and then really being focused on my time management. And then all the things we talk about, all the talks I'll do on creative entrepreneurship, any of those tools. But yeah, it's definitely a process, I would say. Or just like a lot of artists, embrace being fucking bonkers.
You're bonkers.
That's right.
Lola knows. No, play something. I love it when you play. You just got back. I haven't heard you play.
I haven't heard me play. I haven't had the guitar in months.
Well, let's do it.
What do you want to hear?
I want to hear the good stuff. I want to hear whatever comes to you, actually. You can be free. I'm still in training, remember? I'm supposed to be in this band. So, you need to
Your
play.
backing vocals are on point, though.
Yeah, play whatever. And then I'm going to, be in my role.
Okay, do we have...
Where's the guitar? I don't know how to do anything. Where is it?
I mean, this is...
Yeah, play for me.
Hang on.
I'm going to sit here and hang.
Play for me.
That's your favorite
What
line.
the heck? Am I your performing monkey?
That's your favorite line. Play for me.
Play for me.
Something. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I love your music. This is true. So, but I just haven't heard you
Thanks,
play it.
man.
It used to be something I got quite regularly.
The book of love was so badly written. I smoked it up and rose from the ashes. Been afraid of the sound of silence. I took a wrecking ball, tied it to myself. Closer, closer to you I get. Take my heart, been fighting me off. Closer, closer to you I am caught in a leash of a dime degree. No, I won't let go. Whatever it takes, yeah, I'll be giving. So let it take as long as my heart beats still, yeah, my heart beats. Whoa, 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 yeah. Whatever it takes, yeah, I'll be giving. So let it take as long as my heart beats still, yeah, my heart beats still. worth breaking. Yeah, I did love you, but I didn't trust you. Closer, closer to you I get. Take my heart, then fight me off. Closer, closer to you. I am caught in a leash of a dime degree. No, I won't let go. Whatever it takes, yeah, I'll be giving. So let it take as long as my heart beats still, yeah, my heart beats. Whoa, 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 yeah. Whatever it takes, yeah, I'll be giving. So let it take as long as my heart beats still, yeah, my heart beats still. I don't mind is the home of the devil. Falls in love with the cause-free rebel. Caught in a leash of a dime degree. No, I won't let go. I'm what I am, you won't see double. Come rain or shine. Too damn stubborn, bite this damn bullet in half and swallow it. I am what I am. My aim is true. The book of love was so badly written, I smoked it down to the tip and rose from the ashes. Whoa, 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 yeah. Whatever it takes, yeah, I'll be giving. So let it take as long as my heart beats still, yeah, my heart beats. Whoa, whoa. Still, yeah, my heart beats still.
Yay! I love that one so much. You know I love it.
It's hot as balls in here.
Do you have mascara on your eye?
Huh?
Yeah.
Is it?
Mm-hmm. Must have been on your hand. Oh wait, it traveled.
Maybe it's a bug.
No, it's not. You're good now.
Cool. Well,
another one.
I should have properly warmed up before we got together. You guys.
You know, it's organic. I'm using Christian.
It sounds like dog shit. It's natural. Okay. Are you ready?
I was born ready.
I was born. If it's already written, why am I so scared? If it happens for a reason, why am I not prepared? I become what I deserve now with every breath and every word. I become what I deserve. I become what I deserve with every breath and every word. I become what I deserve. For the salt that's on my lips and the love that I might give, for the love that I might give now, are you willing to take a risk? I become what I deserve now with every breath and every word. I become what I deserve with every breath and every word. I become what I deserve with every breath and every word. I become what I deserve. And did I stop believing in a love that will not die in love that will not die. And I stand in my reflection and see what I've become. A shadow of myself now, a projection I have shone. On all four walls around me, I'm drowning in myself. I still can't hear my voice now, but I'm crying out for help. I'm far too fucking young for this, and I'm picking up the pieces. Direction stress can suck a dick. My faith is all I needed. There's still a life to live in this. If it's the last thing that I sing, if it's the last thing that I sing, don't ever let it get you down. It might not be the life you saw, but it'll be worth it in the end. I swear, if it's the last thing you become, for the good, the bad, the ugly, now with every breath and every word, we become what we deserve. We become what we deserve. Did I stop believing in a love that will not die? I'm holding on so tightly. When did I stop believing in a love that will not die? You're shattered. Hope won't pull you back into the light. Oh, when I stop believing in love that will not die, in love that will not die. For the good, the bad, the ugly, we become what we deserve. We become what we deserve.
Yeah! I love that one so much.
Yeah.
You know,
Thanks,
it's
man.
my top 3.
I'm gonna sing. This song is dedicated to E-Gold, the Queen.
I received so many friend requests, but I cannot add anymore.
And you know I want you. With your legs wrapped around my waist, yeah, I could have loved you like nobody else. But you're trying to play a hand at a game that I'd abandoned. Drag it out for far too long, till I'm wondering how it started. I won't even walk out, caught here. Still, man, I can't stand the taste. I ain't even on you. Caught in the thrill of the chase. And you make me feel, and you make me feel, you make me feel. I like to sleep here in the blackout curtains, blind, falling in deep here. High above the city lights, met you in a hotel bar. This should be fun for a night. I keep walking through that door, coming out on the same side. I won't even walk out, caught here. Still, man, I can't stand the taste. I ain't even on you. Caught in the thrill of the chase. And you make me feel, and you make me feel, you make me feel. Oh, post it up and I'm all in. Post it up and I'm all in. I've done better drugs, I've had stronger love, I've had dirty lust that we just don't touch, darling. This ain't love, and it's potent lust, and it's just enough to keep me hooked. Want the interrupt, the unorthodox, the self-afflicted mass chaos. You're not one to trust, though you got me caught between my weakened heart and the tip of your tongue, yeah. Ooh. I wanna hold you, but not for the rest of my life. I wanna own you, 'cause my jealousy is rife. Darling, you're not by my side. You must be fucking someone else. I knew I hadn't met my match. Look at how I played myself. I won't even walk out, caught here. Still, man, I can't stand the taste. I ain't even on you. Caught in the thrill of the chase. And you make me feel, yeah, you make me feel, you make me feel. Oh, posted up and I'm all in. Posted up and I'm all in. Thank you, Party One. Let's go. And cut.
Hi, Jerry Michalski again. This time talking about the session with Tatiana and Dionna and showing you my brain around them. So Tatiana DeMaria is a music producer, singer-songwriter, has synesthesia, we learned from this, and has a band called Tat that she founded in 2003. Here are some of the things that she said during the conversation, which I'll come right back to. Then Dionna McPhatter started a company called Nachi, which is named after Fibonacci, the mathematician from back in the Middle Ages, who created the Fibonacci number, and some of you know exactly what that means, but Fibonacci is trying to drive content to juice engagement. And the two of them had a really interesting conversation. The two of them had a really interesting conversation that went lots of different places. And for example, they were pointing out contradictions, like we can't desire lots of money while saying the system is evil. But also, we don't know as humans where to put our collective trust. And I'm going to connect that to something right now as we go. Then, one of the interesting things that Tatiana said was, that rang my bell kind of later, was, do you blame people who don't believe Big Pharma and government for doubting the vaccines? And I am not a vaccine doubter, I'm not a vaccine skeptic, and I've kind of been working hard on this thought here to convince people to take the coronavirus vaccines. What will it take? Is it effectiveness? How effective are they? What does that mean? All these different kinds of evidence. Should we have mandates? What about honesty and transparency to get people to accept the vaccine? And I also have thoughts about how we've had the huge erosion of trust in corporations and in government. We have basically, humans have lost trust in all sorts of institutions. And here we are, it's government, one of the least trusted institutions, telling them that they should use something created by Big Pharma, which is not exactly held in high esteem these days. So for example, the pharma companies helped weaken legislation in the US that opened the opioid floodgates. And we've been having an opioid epidemic for years now. The pandemic just landed on top of the opioid epidemic, and in fact made a lot of people even more desperate. So that was a really interesting sort of path for me. And then there's a lot here about coping with crises. How do we, if we're getting close to midnight, I'm sort of creating a node called Common Themes across the Unfinished 21 sessions. And one of those common themes is, hey, we're very close to midnight on the doomsday clock, which is in some sense the premise of this event, right? We're basically a minute before midnight on the doomsday clock. So what on earth should we do? And the question then is, you know, I've had this active thought, will we fix what's actually broken during meltdown? And here I point to all the various crises we have. The system was broken before coronavirus hit, let's fix it. Making things better when you repair them, a whole series of different thoughts connected here. But we really don't know what to do, and so many of the sessions here at Unfinished are going into that territory. So here's common themes across Unfinished 21 sessions. One of them, healing from trauma and coping with crises are repetitive, partly because our theme is midnight. What should we do right now is the one I just connected to. Deep listening seems to be one of the remedies, deep listening to yourself, deep listening to other people. And then one that I'm presenting new here, which is a really important thought for me in my brain, is that we are in a titanic battle over the narratives in our heads. And by the way, we've always been. The idea of story, of narrative, is really essential. And I'll be coming back to this in other, as I story thread other sessions at Unfinished. But whoever controls the major dominant narrative kind of controls the structure of institutions, how people think, therefore how they vote and how they act, all sorts of things. And there's plenty of people trying to figure out right now how to change those stories in our heads. Here I have another thought that we need to change our narratives, our scripts, metaphors, and framing. And again, this is my brain, a piece of software I did not create, but this is all my data. I've filled this brain for 23 years. It has almost 500,000 things in it, some of which are books on Amazon, some of which are videos on YouTube, some of which are posts on Medium, some of which are articles on JSTOR, all over the place. So thank you for watching, and we'll keep story threading as these sessions keep coming through.